Okay, so then we're going to go, this is going to be equal to 2 plus, and then again, look at the formula up here. I'm going to use parentheses, plus b divided by c. I'm going to close my parentheses. And so that's what we've got, a plus b over c. And so now, looking at this particular problem, project A, right, with the discounted future value, so the discounted present value of the future value, right, we're looking at a this should be a discounted payback period, right? Sorry. And then I got something wrong here. Oh, I got negative. So this should be the absolute value. So this one, it should not be negative. It should be that. I could either hard code it in there, so I could put 2,562, or I could just put the value times -1 to make it positive. I'll just do that. So now our discounted payback period is 2.74 years. Okay, and that's at the 5% discount rate. Now I could do the whole thing again and change the discount rate to 10 to do the 10%, or let me make this and this a certain color. We'll make 5% blue, okay, and this is also going to be blue. And then let's do a 1 plus k. Let's do over here the same thing. 1 plus k. And then I'll do a 1 plus k, well, this guy to the n, right? And then I'll do a discounted present value. And then we're going to change this color. So we'll do the, just make these something that you can see. How about green? We'll make all these bold so that way we can see them a little bit better. Okay. So 1 plus k. So now we're going to do a 1.1 for 10%, right? 10% discount rate is going to be 1 plus k. 1 plus k is 1 plus 0.1. 0.1 is 10%. So that's how we're getting the 1.1. Do that a couple times. Let Excel know what I want it to do. Drag that down. So 1 plus k is this to the nth power is going to be equal to this. And then we're going to go this, and n is 1 in this case. Here we're doing equals this cell, right? This guy, 2. And now that we've told Excel what we want the formulas to do, we'll pull them down. You can see that does that. That means our discounted payback, discounted present value is going to be equal to, so the FV is in the numerator, this divided by our 1 plus k to the nth power. And then this one is going to be equal to the numerator divided by the denominator. And we've told Excel what we want it to do. We're going to drag it down, and you can see the values drop, right? Okay, so green represents the 10% discount rate. And then we don't need to do this column over, but we do need to do these. So let's Control C, copy those, we'll put them here, right? Okay, escape to get out of that. I'm going to change these to the blue. I'm going to change these to the green, bold, change these to the blue that we used, this blue, bold. There we go. So now if we start with our beginning balance, it's going to equal the initial cost, right? That's at the beginning of our cash flow during the year is going to be these values now. So I'm going to copy these. I'm going to put them here. Oh, and again, Excel didn't like that. So it doesn't like when I do that. So I'm going to use a paste special. So go up to paste the drop down. I just want to paste the values, right? Okay, and then we can change these to, we don't need all those numbers. Let's put those into accounting terms. Okay, and then our ending balance is going to be equal to the beginning plus the cash flow for the year. End of the year, we're at that. We bring that value equals this cell, right? And then end of year is going to be equal to the beginning plus the cash flow for the year. Let me get that. Again, we're going to, this equals the ending. So we've got a couple of instances. We can tell Excel what we want it to do. We'll drag those down. We've got a couple instances here that we told Excel what to do with the same formula. And we'll drag those down. So now, in this case, A's A, B, and C. So these are the greens, or I'm sorry, these are the blues. These are the greens. We're going to change this to green. Where's that green we used? This one, bold. Okay. In this case, A is the last year in which there was a negative cumulative cash flow, right? That's this number. You can see it's positive here. This is the last year was negative. What year was this? 3. So now A is going to be equal to 3. B then is the absolute value of the dollar amount, so of the last year of period A, which is year 3, right? So we're going to say this is equal to this, but remember we want it to be absolute value, so let's multiply it by times -1 to get it to be a positive, or I could have just hard-coded 52.59, right, in that cell. And then C is going to be the cash flow, this column, the cash flow from the year after A. In our case, A is 3, so we're looking for the cash flow of that year, so I'm going to say it's equal to this. And then the discounted, the DPP then, right, the discounted payback period is going to be equal to A plus B over C, so we're going to say equals A, oops, we got a problem because this should not be a dollar, it should be a number. So we want that to be just general. So we're going to say it's equal to this plus, and again, remember our parentheses because we're doing division. This divided by B divided by C. We're going to close our parentheses, hit tab, and we get a discounted payback period when we're using the 10% discount rate of 3 years and a little bit over 3 years, essentially, right? 3.01925 years. That's the discounted payback period for a 10% discount rate for project A. Now you would do the same thing, maybe use a different color for the 20%. What you're going to do is you're going to do a 1 plus K, you follow the exact same process, right? Instead of 1.1 for 20%, you're going to be using a 1.2, right? 20% is 0.2. So 1 plus K, the discount rate of 20%, 1.2. So you'll do that, and you'll find go through this entire process again. That will give you the discounted payback period for project A using all 3 of those. And you would need to do, again, project B, project C, project D for all 3 of these, okay? All right. So now that you've done that, problem 4 says, hey, let's look at the, calculate a net present value. And I'm just going to show you with this because I'll do project A and I'll do a net present value. So we've done all this, right? When you do net present value, let me find my PDF. So we did discount payback period. Net present value, we're finding the same thing. We're finding the discounted cash flow, right? This is that equation right here. And then we're subtracting the initial investment. So the only difference, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this column. So let's do net present value down here. Let me paste that right here. Let's do this is going to be net present value, NPV. So really, the only difference is we don't do the initial, we're not going to start with an initial cost. We're not going to do this column, the cumulative cash flow. We're just going to do the sum of the cash flows that are discounted, right? So in this case, what I've grabbed here is I've grabbed the discount. This is what we calculated to be the discounted present value, right? So we've done that. This is this piece. This is discounted present value. That's all that is, right? So I've got those for each year right here because we calculated it up here. So this is at the 5% discount rate. $4,000 is this, right? 3809. For year 2, $4,000 is 3628. Okay, and again, what that means is $4,000 2 years from now is equal to $3,628 today, right? So here we have this. Now we're going to sum them up. When we do net present value, if we were looking at just 3 years, we would sum those three equals the sum of the first 3 years, because that's all we're looking at. We're looking at 3 years. If we were looking at 6 years, equals the sum, put an open parentheses, I'll grab all of these, I'll hit ending, closing parentheses, and I'm going to hit tab. Boom. So this is at 3 years, this is at 6 years. That's the sum of, and so all this right here says, we calculated these, right? All this says is from year 1 to year end. In our case, we're looking at year 1 to year 3. That means add up those 3 years. That's what this means. So we've just did that. So we have this whole piece done. And then we subtract the initial investment. So for 3 years, and then we're going to go, what's the initial investment? It was 10K, right? So this, so let's say this equals this minus the $10,000 initial investment. Boom. So our net present value at the end of 3 years is $892.99. At the end of 6 years, it's equal to the sum of each year of the cash flows, the discounted present value cash flows, equals that minus the initial investment, which was $10,000. At the end of 6 years, the net present value of project A is $10,302. And that's what you're going to essentially do for these two. You're going to find the discounted present value of each of those cash flows by year, as we did in our method here. And then you're going to subtract the initial cost. And that becomes your net present value. All right. So that's easy calculation. If you can do discounted payback period, that's probably a little bit more complicated than net present value, because all you have to do here is do this piece that you've done, which requires you to do these 4 lines, right? You don't have to do this cash flow stuff. All you gotta do is add up the cash flows. You get to a sum, subtract the project cost, and that gives you your net present value. And this is at 3 years, and this is at 6 years. Easy. And then, as I mentioned, IRR is very similar to net present value. I'm not going to have you calculate that. All right, have fun.